All right, everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Deck. I'm Beata Rouleau, founder and CEO of Compass, where our sole mission is to help businesses break through their revenue bottlenecks, building and implementing go-to-market systems that actually scale. Today, I am joined by Steve Nigri, co-founder of NXTMOVES. They help banks and fintechs launch, manage, and scale modern payment programs. So really excited to learn about a new industry within the fintech space today. So Steve, would love for you to just start us off. Can you share a bit more about your background and any experience we should know that shapes the work you're doing today?
I started my career. I've been in different industries, a couple different industries. I actually started off in the golf business, but I was working with entrepreneurs, which was two guys who had retired from IBM under a golden parachute back in the day when they had those. And one of the things that they taught me, I was very lucky to come out of college and learn sales and sales techniques because they came from the IBM school of train, then train some more. So I was put through a lot of different sales trainings, a lot of business management seminars, a lot of webinars, everything you could think of to learn and do more. So that was one of the things that really shaped my career, was just really understanding how much education you need to learn your techniques on how to communicate and how to deliver things. So I was really fortunate to have really good mentors coming out of school. So I think that's one of the things that shaped me. And then I was able to I moved to New York City and I was working for some major companies and working around Manhattan, was able to make some really cool connections. And that's when I was able to get into financial technology in the early days. They call it Fintech today, but I like to joke around that I was, I got gray hair in the business. So I was there when they were actually just calling it financial technology. And that's where, small startups are really going after big industry players, trying to, bring modernization to a lot of the tech platforms that were out there and, working to hopefully get acquired, which is what we were able to do. So that was our goal.
Yeah, that's so good. Based on that, I have some off script questions for you, Steve. So buckle up. What have you seen since you've been in the financial technology, aka fintech space, for a long time? What off the bat are some changes or trends that you've seen within this industry over the past decade?
I've really seen the incumbent players really learn to work with some of the startups and players that have moved on to become, smaller to mid-tier businesses. So I think there's a more openness, there's a more willingness. And part of that is because tech is moving so fast that you just have to have partners in technology, or you're just not going to be able to keep up with what banks need, with what fintechs need, or any of the businesses that are out there, especially when it comes to any kind of tech or payments. I think it was
Yeah.
more out of necessity than it was necessarily them wanting to, allow smaller players into the ecosystem. But I think because there's so many more products that are needed, there's so many more solutions that people need from, whether it's commercial businesses or whether it's consumers in the marketplace. They didn't have much choice. It was more of necessity. They had to partner.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So you came in, you got access to a lot of sales training, then you got access to the fintech space. What was the point and what was the push that really made you want to start NXTMOVES?
So, got a taste for entrepreneurship with my first company, and then really, was able to go work for two other startups where, I was able to be a strategic part in their growth and the things they were doing. Was able to work on raising capital from large firms like Bain and Andreessen Horowitz, and really got to understand what it takes to really build a business and what it takes to sustain it. One of the things that we saw in the industry was there was mid-tier to small businesses that really didn't have the development capabilities and needed more out-of-the-box solutions and needed more programs that really are more tiered to them instead of just, Fortune 100, 500. A lot of times in the payment space, they have to take programs or take things that were built for the larger companies and they have to kind of, make it fit, square peg in a round hole. We wanted to build programs that are more built for, companies that are 50 million and under.
Okay, that's a great segue. So talk me through how NXTMOVES, like who is your ideal customer and what problems are you solving? So you mentioned the 50 million and under. What are other things that if someone's listening and they fit these criteria, then their ears should perk up. And then what is the problem that you solve that they probably are experiencing?
So we work with a lot of community banks and mid-tier banks. We can help banks solve a lot of problems around card and program management around the cards, issuing that, helping them, with payments or credit facility. We do a lot of stuff around there. As far as modern businesses or retailers or industry players, manufacturers that have large ecosystems that are having trouble with liquidity or having trouble with, making invoice payments or paying the same people all the time, fraud within those services, protecting them around fraud. And then really the thing that you'll see us work most on is, how to make a payment, how to make money from a payment you're making. So we do a lot of virtual cards and try to create revenue from the bills that you're already paying, as well as create efficiencies in that manner so that they're safer and faster.
So for a new client that's coming on board, what are you talked about liquidity, fraud, risk management, but then also the revenue side. Which of those sectors do you see being the majority of the driving force behind customers being like, yes, that's why I would like to work with NXTMOVE is because it solves this problem for me. Which of those is the highest ranked?
The highest ones too is the customers that is our customers that have a lot of either consumer or commercial customers, and they're looking for better ways to engage them. So instead of sending them to payment platforms that remove them from the experience that they're in, so to keep a company to make sure that they don't have to pop out and go to, a shop or go to some of the other ones that you're seeing in the industry players out there, it's able to keep the whole payment infrastructure within their own platforms. So they have better engagement, they have better knowledge of what's going on, they have all the data of what's happening with the payments. So, and we are able to provide most of that without them having to use any development.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is a tool that plugs directly into their product and their ecosystem that is really like a back end layer that allows them to have the data and control that they need without having to send people external.
Correct. So they can go deeper if they have development, so they can, build to APIs. But there's tons of SDK and even screens and layers that we can brand toward them. So it makes sure that they're never popping out to another service. It's all branded toward them. So it looks and feels like an experience that they provide from top to bottom. And most of all, allowing them to data that they're qualified to receive. I mean, some of that data we have to hold and scrub for them, but at least they'll always have their data when they have it with us if they need it or they get to a level where we can clean it up for them. And I mean like removing socials and different things like that, EINs and stuff.
Got it. Yeah, I assume a lot of people don't want to have that data right now, just from the security perspective. It's like I don't want to have that on my radar. I don't want to have to protect against that either.
No, you want to use data, but keep as limited as you have to when it's that security data like SOC 2 compliance or PCI along those lines. So we'll shield you away from having any of that data or having data that people want to hack you for or go after. You won't have any of that on your stuff.
Yeah, that's great. What does the onboarding process look like with your team? Because a lot of this stuff from someone who's, from the outside, all of that is overwhelming I don't actually know how payment program works. How does your team help educate and walk your customers through a process to get them set up?
That's a great question. That's really one of the fundamentals that we built the company on. We hired a number of Gen Xers or people, veteran industry experience that people who have been around and seen what happens when there's not handholding or what gets missed or how it doesn't really get implemented in the correct way. And then all of a sudden, here's this expense or this, this new solution that you're launching, but you're not really getting the results that you need. And a lot of that's done in the forefront of making sure that, we map out and build out, flow of funds and the program and how the program is supposed to launch. And, is there, a phased approach is usually a better way, crawl, walk, run. And making sure that, there's hand holding going on along the way. It's not just tech. It's not just, oh, you signed, here's the product, good luck, hope it wins. It's making sure that it wins. And usually you'll see in the way we price and the way we align ourselves in our programs that if you're not successful, we're not successful in our revenue. So our revenue usually aligns to your success. That way, that we're going to partner with you and align for success.
I think that is values-based pricing is such a good trend that I'm seeing consistently popping up across a lot of different industries. But right now there's so much competition, so many people are offering things. And so I think that's a really smart move, aligning your success with their success. We want customers for a long period of time. And you mentioned ahead of this, like that's a value of yours. So I love
One thing
that.
I will say to that is, we have to tell more people no than we tell them yes on our skill sets and what we do well. But usually there's somebody that we know that can help them. There's somebody in the industry. We've been around this thing long enough that we usually know somebody who's a better fit if it's not us, or somebody that can get them help them understand or consult with them on an issue. We've seen a lot of stuff in our 20 years. So
I would love for you to dive into that a little bit more, because I see a lot of companies that are trying to do we will be anything you need. We will be that. We'll sell you something that doesn't exist. How have you built up that habit to actually turn away business? That is very hard to do. But I would love for any business leaders listening, do you have any advice for how they can stay focused on really a core product?
I don't know if I have great advice. I know I'm learning it on a day-to-day level, especially when you're really focused on some certain niches that you want to go after. And a lot of ours is, on the card programmatic side of, building better cards and partnering with brands. We work with Visa, MasterCard, and Discover on different products. So we've really had to make sure that we bring programs that they're going to like and they're going to want, and programs that banks are going to want. So we just don't have the ability to say, hey, we're going to go do this one-off or this nuance. And, in my career being in sales, like telling somebody no or not wanting to take a plan is really hard for me. So it took me a long time to really learn that, we're going to have to spend so much time outside of what we're really good at, and we're going to take away from what we're really good at, that we need to just get back to our core. And it's always kind of aligning back to our core. I will say there's still a deal here or there that I stretch out on a little bit or, and so far I will tell you that they usually come back to the regret that sticking to the core and stretching out slowly from the core is way better than going outside and trying to bring it back into the core of the business. So I don't know how well we've done it. I know that it started with just really doing better diagnosis up front. So we ask a ton of questions, and it's just to really get to the right answer and really make sure that we could advise you on where to go next, or we could advise you, how it's going to work with us in a way so that you're prepared for, the pricing structures, you're prepared for what you need for the infrastructure that you might have to have, or, other vendors that you might need if this is, really your ideal program or what you want. So I think, one of the things I've learned getting longer in the tooth is how many questions you really have to ask up front to make sure that you're building a good client and that client's building a good vendor or a good partnership with you. We like to think of ourselves as partners to all our clients, and making sure that we align with them to build the best thing that's, also things that aren't in the marketplace, but things that are doing, are going to work better than some of the, plug and plays that are in the industry. So a lot more customization.
Yeah, no, a couple of things, the better diagnosis up front. And then one thing you said that was just brilliant is getting this diagnosis so we can advise you versus sell you. So I would love, you obviously have a sales background and you have a very different approach to it. How have you gone about figuring out what questions do you need to ask to diagnose? I work with a lot of companies on their sales process, and discovery is typically the place where that's the issue, is we're not asking the right questions up front. So do you have any systems or advice on how to really ask those right questions up front?
Yeah, I think I mean, it's just learning. It's control too, because you get excited, especially like they say a couple of things, and you're like, oh, we align perfectly, but then you got to make sure you ask those other questions and say, do we really align for timing, or are we able to get this product to you in the time that we need to, or how does this solution really work? I love finding new solutions for things. There's usually I feel like if there's if there's a will, there's a way, and you can find it, especially like if you're aligning with people who want to, give you everything that you need to make that happen. I think that, what happens, coming from sales, it was always, hated to lose, never wanted to lose a sale. But I think, what we've learned is that discovery isn't meaning that you're going to lose the sale. It's not, you can't look at that as competition. What you have to look at that is diagnosing it. Is this really a real deal? And then we got to decide whether we want to win or lose, or how we're going to win or lose it. But I think in the past, business was not as complicated. I mean, 20 years ago, it was kind of cut and dry. This is what you did. This is what, and now a lot of things mingle. A lot of the things are intertwined in our worlds. And it's like, well, they do a little bit of this and you do a little bit of that. How do you really make that work? So I think we've had to modernize our sales approach, and it's not just something that you can do with AI. It's not just something that you're going to be able to do with, somebody who's younger, who doesn't necessarily know the questions to ask. I think we're in an interesting world when it comes to, what the mechanisms of discovery are, but it really starts with also making sure you're getting to the people who are going to make the decisions, so that you're not just getting somebody up front who's telling you the things that they think they need. When you get to this, the right decision maker to say, hey, what is it that you're exactly trying to pull off here? Because, as a CFO, the greater good is not just basically the product, right? There's some cost savings, or there's some revenue in here, or a level of engagement that will get you something else. So we need to really understand what the mechanism is to make the deal work.
Yeah, no, that's great. And how, you mentioned AI. I would love to know from your perspective, where are you seeing AI have the biggest benefit? That's, everybody's talking about it. Where's having the biggest benefit? And then where are you like, hey, we need to hold up. This is where a human is, we need a human involved for this element.
Yeah, I think, on our side of the stuff, I think we're still seeing a ton of where you need human interaction. But I think the speed of how the people on our team getting information, getting data faster, getting to their decisions faster, us as a company learning about something on that would have taken 3 weeks. Now we get the data, in minutes. So I think that we've been able to really use AI toward, whether it's creating a document and making it, getting some basis points right out the door a little bit easier. And then we bring the expertise, or whether it's getting data of something you never thought you'd get, or you'd have to do some big analysis, and being able to get that quicker. So I think what we've focused on right now is, and some of that's through sales, and, there's ways to, with Claude or some of the services out there, go through your LinkedIn, go through different things out there. I think that we're using it right now in our best of us ability to make us better at what we do and make us more efficient. So things that used to take us 2 hours take us 10 minutes now. So that's how we've really been able to use AI. I can't say that we've been able to replace an individual or anything along those lines. I don't know if it's there yet on our side of the business.
Yeah, and I think that's, the goal. A lot of people do talk about replacing people, and I personally don't agree with that approach. I think we should be elevating people to where one person can have more output because they're not spending their time. They can do more of what makes them really unique and good. So I don't view that as a bad thing. I actually view that as a good thing.
Yeah, and that's what we said too, like with our people, is that, we're, we're 17 people company. So, we need, people have to do the job of 2 and 3 people. That's just the way it is. I think modern workforce is like that now. It's that, you might make a little bit more, but you're also going to do the work of more because it's just the business that we're in and, where commerce is today with, commercial business.
Yes, absolutely. How has your team kind of shifted over NextMove's lifetime? Like, talk to me about how your team's grown and then what the current team setup is right now.
So we're very lucky. Many of us have worked together. We hired a lot of industry vets, and the industry vets are able to do the job of multiple people, but more than anything, able not to make some mistakes that a lot of startups might make because there's not experience within the team. We have probably a much higher payroll than traditional companies of our size, but we did that on purpose because we were able to really go out and hire some experts in the industry that really know what they're doing, that have prevented us from spending money where we would have made mistakes or not been able to advise the client properly or not been able to deliver for a client properly. And we didn't want to make those mistakes. We felt like, paying a little more upfront gave us the ability to make sure that we could perform faster and deliver better.
Yes, I think it's such a good call out. A lot of people are optimizing for cost, but sometimes the cost does not outweigh. You could have 3 people, more junior level people that it's gonna take longer. It's gonna make a lot more mistakes, or you can pay a little bit more for one person that just has a playbook. They know what they're doing. They can come and say, we're doing this, we're not doing that. And that, especially being in the financial technology, having people who really understand the industry is very important so that you have the best in class service for your clients.
Yeah, especially because we also deal with a lot of regulations and, we're constantly having to make sure that, we're providing the proper advisement and diligence around the compliance and regulations that are out there. So, and those are adjusting and changing. And then what might come down the pipe as, our government's been shifting a lot of different ways over the last couple of years. So understanding what that means and making sure we put programs in place that, are going to be able to stand the test of time, are going to be able to make those adjustments over time. You just need experienced people to do that. That's just, there's so many, we have some young rock stars on our team, one for sure, that's just amazing, but they still can't make up for experience. There's just nothing you can do for, somebody who's done it for 20 years.
And how you brought up the shifting in compliance and regulatory, how does your team stay up to date on all the craziness that's going on so that you can advise well?
So we're big on that. We buy, we're getting every trend magazine, everything, obviously along those lines, but we also go to a number of different conferences. We sit on a number of different webinars. Then we also meet with regulators that we get on phone calls to talk to them. What are they seeing? What are they not? We also hire 2 industry experts that are doing regulations on a regular basis to explain to us what we need to know, what we need to understand. So the company puts a lot of effort toward making sure that our team is extremely educated, as well as myself and my co-founder. We spend a lot of time in the industry talking to people and understanding, and you just really can't have enough knowledge when it comes to that. Especially when it comes around, regulations. There's, it's either right or it's wrong. And then, some regulations, the way it's written is that they can be a little ambiguous. So you have to make sure that you're leaning toward the side of where the regulator will be.
Yeah, it's a painful thing, but it's an important thing to get regulation to stay compliant. That could be a stopper for a lot of businesses. So you're a founder of this company. Do you have any advice, or what advice would you have for other founders who are interested in fintech or anything in technology?
I think, one of the things I've really learned on technology is that you have to constantly stay up with it. Our biggest expansion over the last 6 months has been in development, has been, making sure, because, one thing about technology, as soon as you launch it, it's getting old that day. So you have to make sure that you stay up with it. I think it's very important that if you're not technical, I'm technical enough to be dangerous, but my partner is very technical. I think it's really important if you want to get into technology that you at least have a partner, or you have a major person that you trust to do that. You can't just, hope that you're going to hire some technology guys and it's going to go that way. You need somebody who really has forethought and experience in the tech side, to counterbalance what, I know as far as on the sales side, industries, making deals, building programs, stuff along those lines, so that, we can balance each other out, to make sure that we bring the best to the company. Because not knowing tech can hurt you bad if you're in that game.
Yeah, you brought up a great point it sounds like you and your partner have a good balance though, because I've seen it both sides where you have a really strong technical person leading or a really strong sales, business person leading. To have both is a very powerful thing. To have somebody that understands business, understands how to make deals, but also having that strong technical side. So it's really good advice there.
Yeah, we've been able to see that, and I've seen a number of people, unfortunately, smaller businesses that have spent, six figures on missing on products, or the product never being built right, or the product not being able to do, and either costing them, not being here today, or, costing them, tremendous amounts of money that they didn't really get to, use in a proper way. So it is really important to know one side or the other. Even if you're a tech, you need to bring somebody in that understands how to, develop revenue and build client success and along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're at the end of 2025, heading into 2026, what does success look like over the next year? What are you focused on as a business?
So we've been fortunate to sign a number of deals that are launching in 26, and, making sure that we're aligned with those clients and those clients are ready for launch. I think that is the biggest thing, and would be our biggest challenge, because it's not just us, we're very in sync with our clients, but we have to make sure that they're coordinated, they're doing the things that they say they're going to do, whether it comes down to, weekly meetings and check-ins to make sure, hey, look, these were the 2 takeaways that you had last week. These were our 2 takeaways. If you didn't achieve them, why not? What's our barrier? What's making sure that, everybody's talking about the, per se, the gorilla in the room, but making sure that he's not sitting over there, laughing at us, and we got him under control. So
we could talk about that for a while. Client onboarding. You can only be successful if your client does what they're supposed to do. So there's definitely a lot of power to making sure there's a good system in place for that. Okay.
So you have to offer that. One of the things that we do is offer a lot of hand holding in that area, especially once we've locked in and we have a delivery date set. Then all parties need to be doing the things that they need to do to get there. And, some weeks are going to be better than others. But I think always aligning and making sure that, why did something miss or why did something not miss, but not talking about it doesn't help programs get live.
Right. If people, as we're wrapping up, if people want to get in contact with you or with NXTMOVES, what's the best place for them to do that?
Two ways. For me, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm the only one on LinkedIn with my last name. So I always say you're not looking too hard for me if you don't find me on LinkedIn. But if you hit me on LinkedIn, I always respond to people. I'm always happy to, understand if I can help you in any way. I always like to give back. Been big proponent of that my whole career, and it's been quite rewarding. And then we have info at nextmoves.io. So.
Okay, perfect. I will put that in the show notes in case anybody wants to do that. Steve, thank you for coming on today and sharing. I think we could probably do a whole nother episode around sales, because I'm so interested it sounds like you've gotten some really good information out of that I think could be valuable. So maybe we'll have you back on, but thank you so much for joining me today.
I love talking sales. That's fun. But it was great talking with you. Thanks so much. And I appreciate you letting me come on. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.